So I thought I would film a typical cycle. At this point I've got the saddle sitting forward on the knee. I've got it pushed over as far as I can anyways to create the gap here where the gib goes. I've got the gib stoned, cleaned up. And I've got the dovetail glued. We try and get this gib in there without scraping it along the way. And I just stick it on an aluminum rod here. I just use it to tap it in there. And then this was the reason I wanted to have the crank handle, because I can break it free and just hold it from moving there. So, like I said, I had been working away at making sure I had everything I needed so that I could run the saddle back and forth with the lead screw. So we've got that taken care of. The gib, which I'm not sure, is probably not showing up here. I'll try and get a picture of it, but just based on the turkite and all the changes in the material, the gib as it came stock is not gonna cut it. It's almost bottomed out now. I've been working away at the surface, the sliding surface on the gib, and I don't know, I'm probably about 50 or 60% of where I want to be. Close enough that I was tempted, and I am doing a little bit of geometry checks here, and I'm encouraged by those so far, and I'll show some of those. But so at this point I'm just using it as it is. I've got everything lubed up, so it's kind of simulated. It's not really, but it's somewhat simulating use conditions in use. And I'm pretty happy so far. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is I'm actually going to fit the gib all the way in as is. Just keep pushing it in, keep fitting it, and what I actually do is I alternate between bluing on the actual machine, going to a surface plate. I found that worked well with the gib for the knee to the column. So I'm going to keep with that same, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to keep with that same process for this gib, and then also for the table gib, and see where that gets us. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I've got a tense indicator over here right now. I'm going to kind of get a shot of that as the table's moving. This is up against the fixed side here, just kind of seeing, and then I can grab the saddle and get a good indication of what kind of play I've got in different positions along the knee here. So I've got the GoPro here set up, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record. And I don't know how to do picture-in-picture, but so I'll put this video after, but I'm going to record what this looks like as the table's traversing, or the saddle, sorry, is traversing. That's almost full stroke there now. And then so back at this position here, if I grab the table here, looks like about a half a thou there. If I take it in about 3 or 4 inches here, only a couple of tenths there. So I'm quite pleased with where we're at so far with the table moving. The next thing I'm going to verify is the back of the saddle. Sorry, I think I said table. The saddle moving. So the next thing I'm going to verify is, save battery there. The next thing I'm going to verify is the back of the saddle perpendicular to the knee. So in other words, is the movement in this axis parallel? And then I want to check the back of the saddle to the column and verify that that is sitting square as well. So as you can see, I've got the large square mounted to the back of the saddle here, and I've got an indicator set up here at the front. So I'm really happy with that. That still looks good there. And then if I, well, there's quite a bit of movement, but that's a long way out. That's about 2 thou there. So like I say, I still have got a little bit of work to do on the gib. And then same with the when we worked on the knee, right, that once we get that gib fitted and get the center section relieved on the gib so that we're in contact mostly on one end or the other, that rocking goes away. Houston, we have a problem. So as you can see, I've got the saddle back off of the knee here. I was getting really good results, the saddle moving in this direction here. The indicator was bouncing a little bit, but I thought that was okay. One of the things I think I was doing, and I'm not sure if anybody caught it in the video, but I caught myself as I watched it and did a little editing, that I actually had the indicator attached to the saddle and just monitoring the fixed way of the knee. And well, of course you're not going to get much movement out of that, right? It's just monitoring itself up against the surface it's actually touching. So that video, although it looked nice, really didn't give me anything. So what I started noticing was in certain positions I would see some rock. I could move the saddle. I could be really, really tight and get nothing, no movement in it at all. Even though I didn't have the gib completely scraped in and fit, I was loose up here at the front end, and I was getting tighter in the middle, and then again loose. And so anyways, I've done a couple of things off camera that I haven't filmed, but I've been measuring with 2 matched dowel pins across the dovetails here, and I've got a bunch of hieroglyphics here. But anyways, there was what's that? That's almost 5 thou. I'm not sure if that's real or So I started to notice something's wrong in that, and I thought, well, the important thing right now is to make sure that this fixed way runs perpendicular to the column. So right now I've got the some 1, 2, 3 blocks up against the column, and then the square, the 24-inch square is up against that. So what I've got is I've got the tense indicator mounted to the little gauge I had made up, which has the pin riding up against the dovetail and the flat surface up against the way. And what I'm monitoring now is up against the square. So what we're doing is we're checking perpendicularity of the dovetail to the column ways. So this is what it ends up looking like on this side here, which is the fixed dovetail side. It's a guiding way, and using the square and the indicator with the pin up against the dovetail here. I got a 0 here and a 0 down here. And then I got 1, 2, 2.5 thou, 2, 1 thou, and then back to 0 here. So this dovetail comes out like this. So I'm going to step scrape it first. Actually, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to spot it to see if I can see that when I spot it. I thought I had it straight, but sometimes the map is wrong when you're looking at the map and it's not telling you what you're seeing. So anyway, I'm going to come up with some step scraping here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this. So I would scrape 1, 2, probably 3 cycles again on the dovetail, and then 2, 1, and kind of blend down to 0 on either end of here, and then get back on it and measure it again and see what we get. So this is the first attempt at trying to figure out what's going on here and straighten up this this dovetail here, this fixed side. And I put a straight edge on there, minimal bluing, just to try and get a spotting that represents what I'm measuring as well. So it looks like it is, although I've said that before. So this right here is about, that's the front of the mill there. That's about halfway at that where I figured I was about 2.5 thou heavy. And then this is all the way back to the column here. But I want to be careful that I don't I want to be careful that as I use the straight edge, I'm not rocking it back and forth and showing bluing at the ends because of that rocking on the high point in the middle. So I'm gonna scrape through this section here, step scraping a little bit just to take out that high spot. And then I'm going to work very slowly here, and the way I've got it set up and the way I think I can scrape it in this position, I can put the square back on there relatively easily and verify where I'm headed here. One of the things that I've thought I should do as I'm trying to navigate through, figure out what's actually happened here with what I've found with the dovetail on the knee. So one of the things that I wanted to do was use the cylindrical square to verify the large square that I've been using. I'm trying to sort through in my mind what's happening as I figure out what I have to do to fix it. It's not the end of the world, it's just not what I was hoping for. So what I just do here is I just use a tense indicator and I've just got a flat base here, and I just roll it against the cylindrical square here, and I zero that out. And then I'll take it over here to the square. This is a 24-inch square. And it's zeroing out there. So I'm happy with that's not the source of my error. So I have checked this dovetail with the knee sitting vertical on the large cast iron surface plate. Now it was difficult for me to slide my gauge up and down along the way and holding it tight against the dovetail and getting an accurate measurement here. So I find what I'm doing now with the square on the actual column and running along the dovetail is working a little better. So I just wanted to, like I said, I wanted to verify that the two squares are actually square. So I've got a bunch of my hieroglyphics here on the knee, the top of the knee. I'll just kind of go through it here, and then maybe I'll sketch it out on a piece of paper what I think's going on here. I've got the fixed side dovetail looking pretty straight. I'm using a straight edge master here that I got from my buddy Harold. So and this fits the knee perfectly. It's the right length, and I'm getting some pretty good readings with it. So I'll show you a picture of that. And then when I put the square up against the column and then run my gauge along this fixed side here, I'm going from 0 to 1 thou, and that's about maybe a little more than a foot. Just because of the way the square sits on here, I can't get all the way to the end, but that's what that looks like. When I've gone back and measured across the dovetails with the dowels, these are my numbers here. I go anywhere from a low of 23/8 to 25/8, so there's 2 thou variation across here. But I've also got 1 thou of taper in this direction, so as I adjust to get rid of this taper to make sure this runs square to the column, that will actually change my measurement across the dovetails, because this dovetail will be moving in. And then I flipped the square around to the other side and I swept the Gibbs side, and I've got 1 thou bow in that side. So when I do all the calculations on what I think is going to happen If I take this taper out of here, get this square to the column, if I take the bow out of the other side, I'm going to be probably within about 6 or 7 tenths across this width here, which I can then decide at that point whether I want to get that any better or not. And the key will be is if the width is consistent all the way through the whole knee, when you adjust the gib, you will have the same tension across the saddle as it's moving. So I'm going to try and sketch this out here. So if this is the two flat ways of the column, I've got the square sitting like so, and then if I look at what results I'm getting across the dovetails, I don't have that drawn right, but you'll have to, this is fixed and this is the gibbed side. So right now this here is a 0 and this is +1 thou. So I've got to swing this back up, and then across between these here two dovetails with the dowels, I think I've got 0.002 thou variation across there. But I've also got on the gib side, I've got a 1 thou bow in that side. So when I swing this side back in this way, that's going to take some of this out. When I get rid of this bow and bring that in, my measurements across the two dovetails should get flatter. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I thought I would show just a complete cycle, which for me starts with getting my master, my straight edge here blued. And this is it's a fairly hard durometer, this roller. I like that. It gives me feedback. And if I've got anything in the bluing, any kind of debris or anything, you can see it, you can feel it. So I've got the dovetail cleaned, and I'll show that at the end of my cycle. That's the last thing I do. So right now we're going to take the master, and I'm trying to get that angle as close as I can to what's required before it actually touches, which is right there. And you can see out at the edge where the blue has come off the master. And so you can see we've got contact in various spots. I've already been checking geometry on this. So at this point I'm taking high points off. And right now, my next cycle I will be scraping in this direction here. So the next thing I do after I scraped it is I wipe it out of there, clean it out, all the debris. And then I alternate between, this is an old file, I use only the one side, or a stone. And then once I've stoned that and then wiped the WD-40 out of there, then I go back through and clean it with some alcohol. And then we do it all over again.